everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today. We're tackling one of those historical mysteries that just grabs you and doesn't let go. I'm talking about the Amber Room.
Oh, the Amber Room. Intrigue, artistry, loss, all on such a grand scale.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about a room made entirely of amber
A chamber that was even dubbed the eighth wonder of the world.
and valued at over $180 million today. That's serious money, even now.
Absolutely. And the historical value is really immeasurable.
So we've got some great sources lined up to help us unravel this mystery.
What kind of sources are we looking at?
We've got articles from Atlas Obscura and Heritage Daily.
Classic choices for a deep dive like this.
And get this, we're even going to touch on some excerpts about the Romanov royal martyrs.
Ooh, interesting. That adds a whole other layer.
So buckle up, because we're going to trace the Amber Room's journey through time.
From its creation in Prussia all the way to its mysterious disappearance during World War II.
It's going to be a wild ride.
One thing that I think is often overlooked is that the Amber Room wasn't just about extravagance.
Oh, I totally agree. It was much more than just a pretty room.
Exactly. It was a potent symbol of power, reflecting the ambitions and tastes of the rulers who possessed it.
Okay, so let's go back to the very beginning, the early 18th century, with King Frederick I of Prussia.
Ah, yes, King Frederick I.
Now, this king, he had a bit of a reputation, for being a little extravagant.
A little?
Okay, maybe more than a little. I mean, he even kept a collection of giants as his personal bodyguards.
That's not something you hear every day.
But it was during his reign that the idea for the Amber Room was born.
So how did that happen?
Well, he inherited a massive amount of amber.
Amber. We're talking about that fossilized tree resin, around 44 million years old.
The one and only. They called it the gold of the North.
It's funny, amber isn't just a pretty gemstone, though. I mean, it's beautiful, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But its electrostatic properties fascinated early scientists, and its use in art and jewelry dates back to the Stone Age. It's no wonder that it held such a lure for royalty and artists alike.
So Frederick I, with all this amber at his disposal, decides to create something truly spectacular.
The Amber Room.
Right, he commissions the Amber Room, and he entrusts this project to his court architect, André Schluter.
Schluter was a visionary, but he knew he needed a master craftsman to truly bring his vision to life. So he brought in Gottfried Wolfram from Denmark.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Wolfram and his team were true pioneers. They developed new techniques to bond those delicate slivers of amber together, forming those large panels that would become the walls of the room.
It must have been an incredibly meticulous and painstaking process.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine the precision and skill required.
So what was the end result of their efforts?
A stunning amber paneled chamber. It was initially installed in the Berlin City Palace.
Can you picture it?
I try to every time I think about the Amber Room.
Illuminated by that warm glow of candlelight, those golden tones reflecting in the mirrors, the intricate carvings catching the light.
It's easy to see why it earned the nickname the eighth wonder of the world.
Absolutely breathtaking. But as we all know, the Amber Room story doesn't end in Prussia.
Oh no, it's just the beginning.
It takes an incredible journey to Russia.
Thanks to Peter the Great.
Peter the Great, famous for his ambition to modernize Russia, his thirst for knowledge, and, as it turns out, his fascination with the Amber Room.
You know, he wasn't just obsessed with acquiring beautiful things. He was a shrewd ruler.
So what was his angle with the Amber Room?
For Peter the Great, the Amber Room wasn't just about beauty. It was about luxury and sophistication, things he craved for his own burgeoning empire.
Yeah.
Owning the Amber Room would elevate Russia's status, show the world that Russia could rival, even surpass the artistic achievements of Western Europe.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going.
It's all about power and perception, isn't it?
Yeah. So in 1716, Peter visits the Prussian court. And, like everyone else, he's utterly captivated by the Amber Room.
And as luck would have it, King Frederick William Mozart, the son of Frederick, I wasn't quite as attached to the Amber Room as his father had been.
So an opportunity presents itself.
Precisely. And Frederick William Mozart seized this opportunity to make a grand gesture, a gesture that could secure a valuable alliance. He needed to secure a military alliance with Russia against Sweden. And what better way to seal the deal than by offering a truly spectacular gift?
The Amber Room.
The Amber Room, a symbol of power, artistry, and Prussian generosity.
And Peter the Great, of course, accepts.
Of course, it was a brilliant move on both sides.
Now, transporting this incredibly precious and fragile cargo was no small feat.
Imagine tons of amber panels, some of them quite large, being moved hundreds of miles.
It's mind-boggling.
They actually packed it up and loaded it onto sleds for a long, arduous journey across the icy landscape, all the way to St. Petersburg.
That's dedication.
And a huge risk. Remember, those amber panels were incredibly delicate.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about the 18th century here.
Exactly. Every bump in the road, every jolt of the sled could have spelled disaster. It really highlights how much importance Peter the Great placed on acquiring this treasure.
Finally, the Amber Room arrives in St. Petersburg, safe and sound.
But the challenges weren't over.
Oh, no. What else could go wrong?
It had to be reassembled.
Oh, right, of course. I mean, they couldn't just plop it down in the palace and call it a day.
And remember, there were missing pieces. There were no instruction manuals.
Oh, wow, I didn't think about that. They essentially had a giant, incredibly valuable jigsaw puzzle on their hands.
Exactly. And they couldn't just order replacement parts.
I mean, this isn't like you can just go to Amazon and click buy now, right?
No Amazon Prime in the 18th century.
Mm-hmm.
Skilled craftsmen had to improvise. They used their knowledge of woodworking and amber to piece the room back together, filling in the gaps, making sure everything fit perfectly.
That must have been an incredible challenge.
A true testament to their skill and dedication.
So the Amber Room had made it to Russia. But as you know, its journey was far from over.
Oh, this is just the beginning.
In the decades that followed, the Amber Room would become even more magnificent, a true symbol of Imperial Russia.
And that is where we'll pick up next time.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the story of the Amber Room. Last time we left off with the Amber Room arriving in Russia, a gift from Prussia to Peter the Great.
Quite a gift.
You might think that once a treasure like that is tucked away safely in a palace, that's kind of the end of the story, right?
Oh, not at all. The Amber Room story in Imperial Russia is anything but boring.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
It's a tale of evolving tastes, artistic ambition,
And
how a single room could become a symbol for an entire nation.
okay, so let's fast forward a few decades. It's now the reign of Empress Elizabeth.
Empress Elizabeth.
And she, like Peter the Great before her, was completely smitten with the Amber Room.
She was, wasn't she? But Elizabeth wasn't content with it just being a pretty room.
She wanted more.
Oh, she had grand plans. Empress Elizabeth, you see, had a vision.
What kind of vision?
She wanted the Amber Room to reflect her own grandeur. But more than that, she wanted to embody the spirit of the Russian Enlightenment.
The Russian Enlightenment.
I mean, it was a movement sweeping through Europe at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Salons, intellectual discourse, artistic expression.
A celebration of Russian culture.
Exactly. And the Amber Room, in her eyes, would be the heart of all of this.
Okay, but the Amber Room was already a masterpiece. What exactly did she change?
Well, first, she decided it needed a new home.
A new home.
It was initially installed in the Winter Palace, remember?
Right.
But it was later moved and embellished several times. Finally, she brought in the Italian sculptor, Alexander Martelli, to oversee a major expansion and redesign of the Amber Room.
So they added even more to it.
Oh, under her direction, they added even more amber, mirrors, gilded figures,
Anything else?
and even incorporated these exquisite Florentine mosaics.
Florentine mosaics. What are those exactly?
They're pictures made from precisely cut and fitted pieces of colored stone, often depicting detailed scenes or landscapes.
Wow.
Incredibly intricate and time-consuming to create, which only adds to their value and beauty.
I bet.
Adding them to the Amber Room really elevated it to a new level of artistry.
It must have been stunning.
Oh, it became this fascinating blend of Italian artistry with Russian opulence.
So Elizabeth wasn't content with just adding on. She moved the whole thing, too.
She did.
Where did it end up?
Its final move, under Elizabeth's direction, was to the Catherine Palace
A Catherine Palace.
in Tsarskoye Selo. You might know it better as Tsar's Village. This happened in 1755, and this is where the Amber Room reached its peak of magnificence.
How big are we talking here? I mean, give me a sense of the scale.
The finished room was massive, over 55 square meters,
Wow.
and weighed over 6 tons.
6 tons.
To put that in perspective, that's like 3 elephants worth of amber.
That's a lot of amber.
It wasn't just the size that was so impressive. It was the sheer beauty and artistry of the room.
I can only imagine.
Picture this thousands of shimmering amber pieces reflecting the candlelight, creating this warm, almost magical glow.
Sounds amazing.
No wonder contemporaries called it the 8th wonder of the world.
A palace fit for a czarina, or in this case, an empress.
Yes. And then we come to Catherine the Great.
Catherine the Great, ah yes, another larger-than-life figure in Russian history.
Now, Catherine the Great was known for her sharp intellect, her love of art and culture, and her, shall we say, colorful personal life.
Colorful indeed. But she was also captivated by the Amber Room, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like the rulers before her, she was captivated by the Amber Room.
So she appreciated its beauty and historical significance.
More than that, she saw it as a testament to Russia's power and refinement. She used it for important gatherings, showcasing it to dignitaries and foreign guests.
So the Amber Room had a pretty good run up to this point. Centuries of royal admiration, additions, expansions.
Right.
It had become this incredibly iconic symbol of Imperial Russia.
Exactly.
But then World War II happened.
And everything changed.
The Nazis. They were obsessed with the Amber Room.
They were.
What was it about this room that made it so valuable to them?
It wasn't just its monetary value, though that was considerable.
I can imagine.
For Hitler, the Amber Room was a symbol. He believed it was rightfully German property, stolen, in his eyes, by the Russians.
Stolen.
Mm-hmm.
But wait, wasn't it a gift from Prussia to Peter the Great? How could he consider it stolen?
That's a good point. It does highlight how history can be manipulated to fit a certain narrative.
That's true.
Hitler's justification was flimsy at best, but it serves his purpose. You see, to him, the Amber Room embodied a kind of Germanic artistic supremacy that he wanted to reclaim.
So it was more about ideology than actual ownership.
Exactly. Recovering the Amber Room would be a propaganda victory, a way to showcase Nazi dominance and belittle their enemies.
It's fascinating and heartbreaking to think of this incredible work of art, centuries in the making, being treated like a trophy to be won.
I know. And in 1941, that's exactly what happened. Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa.
Operation Barbarossa, the Nazis' surprise attack on the Soviet Union.
It was a massive invasion, intended to conquer vast territories and crush their communist rivals.
And as German troops advanced towards Leningrad, the curators at the Catherine Palace knew that the fate of the Amber Room hung in the balance.
Absolutely. And they knew they had to act fast to protect this priceless treasure as the war raged around them.
It must have been a terrifying time. They must have known what the Nazis would do if they found it.
Their first thought was to dismantle it and hide the panels.
Seems logical.
But remember, the amber had become brittle over the centuries.
We're talking hundreds of years old, right? It must have been incredibly fragile.
Exactly. It started crumbling as soon as they tried to remove it. They couldn't risk damaging it further.
So they had to come up with another plan, and fast.
A desperate plan.
So what did they do? I mean, how do you hide something that enormous and valuable?
Think fast, on your feet thinking. They decided to try and hide the Amber Room in plain sight, disguising it.
Oh.
They covered the amber panels with wallpaper.
Wallpaper.
And then they built a false wall in front of it,
So they tried to make it look like just another ordinary room.
hoping to trick the Nazis into thinking it was just an ordinary room. It was a desperate gamble, a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek with one of the world's most valuable treasures.
And did it work?
Unfortunately, no. The Nazis were not easily fooled.
Oh, no.
They'd done their homework, they'd scoured records, interviewed locals, and they knew about the Amber Room.
So they were looking for it.
Oh, yeah. It didn't take them long to see through the ruse and uncover the hidden panels.
What a crushing blow. I can't imagine what it must have been like to watch as this symbol of Russian culture and history fell into the hands of the enemy.
It was a devastating loss for the Russians and a propaganda victory for the Nazis. They meticulously dismantled the Amber Room.
So they took it apart.
And shipped it off to Königsberg Castle in East Prussia.
Königsberg, wasn't that a strategically important city for the Germans?
Yes, it was a major port city and a historical stronghold for Prussia. But as the war turned against Germany, Königsberg became increasingly vulnerable.
The walls were closing in.
Exactly. The Red Army was closing in, and Allied bombers were pounding the city from the air.
So the Amber Room, already stolen once, is now caught in the crossfire of a brutal war.
It was. And in this chaos, amid the fire and destruction, the Amber Room vanished.
Vanished? What do you mean vanished? It was a whole room. How can a room just vanish?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What happened to the Amber Room in those final days of the war? We have conflicting accounts, whispers of secret hiding places, rumors of utter destruction. The disappearance of the Amber Room remains one of the most enduring mysteries of World War II.
So we have a real mystery on our hands. A stolen treasure, hidden in plain sight, then lost in the fog of war.
Exactly.
What happened? Was it destroyed? Hidden? Did it even survive the war?
We'll delve into those questions and more when we come back for the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back, deep divers. It's the final part of our journey into the heart of the Amber Room mystery. Last time, we left off with the Amber Room in Königsberg as the war was coming to a close. Stolen by the Nazis, hidden in a castle, now facing the onslaught of the advancing Red Army and Allied bombing raids. Talk about a nail-biting scenario.
It really is. The fate of the Amber Room during those chaotic final days is a tangled web of conflicting accounts and missing evidence.
It's like trying to piece together a jigsaw puzzle where half the pieces have just vanished.
The very valuable and historically significant jigsaw puzzle.
Exactly. So let's try to make sense of what we do know. Königsberg, under heavy bombardment from both the Soviets and the British, eventually falls to the Red Army in 1945. Now you might think, why go to all this trouble to hide a room?
Right, but remember, the Amber Room wasn't just some expensive decoration.
Oh, absolutely not.
For the Russians, it represented their cultural heritage, their connection to the Tsars, their national pride.
Losing it to the Nazis would have been a devastating blow.
It would have been.
So what happened to it amidst all this upheaval?
Well, there's the account of Alfred Rode.
Road.
He was the director of the Königsberg Museum, where the Amber Room was displayed. He initially reported to his superiors that the amber panels had been saved from the bombs.
Okay, so they survived the bombing.
But then, just weeks before that, he told a friend a very different story,
Uh-oh. This doesn't sound good. What did he say?
that they had been destroyed.
Wait, so which is it? Saved or destroyed? You can't have it both ways.
Right. It's one of the many mysteries surrounding the Amber Room's disappearance. Adding to the confusion, Rhodes' friend, Liesl Am, described seeing this honey-like mass covering the stones in the castle's basement, where the room was supposedly stored for safety.
A honey-like mass.
Almost like the amber had melted in the intense heat of the fires.
A melted masterpiece. That's an incredibly haunting image. But if the room was destroyed, why would Rode tell his superiors that it survived?
Well, there are a few theories. Maybe he feared being blamed for failing to protect the Amber Room. Or perhaps, as some have speculated, he managed to smuggle it out of Königsberg in all the chaos, taking the secret of its location to his grave.
A secret escape under the cover of war. That's a compelling theory. But then there's the idea that the Soviets themselves might have accidentally destroyed the Amber Room.
Yes, some believe that during the victory celebrations in Königsberg, amidst all the revelry, Russian soldiers might have unintentionally started a fire that consumed the room. It would explain why the Soviets were so tight-lipped about the Amber Room's fate after the war.
Covering up a tragic accident. That makes sense. But then, of course, we have to talk about the conspiracy theories, right?
Of course. We've got everything from billionaires with amber-paneled yachts to stories about Stalin secretly relocating the room to some hidden bunker.
Gotta love a good conspiracy theory.
Right. They're definitely entertaining. And who doesn't love a good conspiracy? But they often lack concrete evidence. The truth is, we may never know for sure what happened to the Amber Room. The most likely scenario is that it was a combination of factors.
Like what?
Deliberate deception, misdirection, maybe even an accident, all happening against the backdrop of a world at war.
So it seems like we've hit a dead end. The Amber Room just vanished. Does that mean it's lost forever? No hope of ever finding it?
Not necessarily. There have been numerous searches over the years, fueled by tantalizing clues and persistent rumors. Remember back in 1997 when a man tried to sell a Florentine mosaic from the Amber Room?
Wait, what? A piece of the puzzle resurfaces decades later.
It created a huge stir, a flurry of excitement and speculation.
That's incredible.
It was a major breakthrough, offered a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, more of the Amber Room had survived. And even more recently, the fourth Florentine mosaic from the room was discovered, further fueling the mystery.
It's almost as if the Amber Room is sending us little whispers from the past, urging us to keep looking.
I like that. And those whispers have led to some compelling theories. Some believe that the Nazis, realizing they were losing the war, might have hidden the Amber Room to confuse their pursuers, perhaps even sinking it with other treasures on a ship. Two ships in particular, the Minden and the Karlsruhe, have been the focus of recent investigations.
Why those two?
They were known to be carrying valuable cargo when they sank in the Baltic Sea.
So the Amber Room could be sitting at the bottom of the ocean waiting to be rediscovered.
Wouldn't that be something?
It would be an incredible find. But, while the fate of the original Amber Room remains a mystery, its legacy lives on. A painstaking reconstruction was completed in the Catherine Palace back in 2003, based on old photographs and descriptions. It may not be the original, but it allows us to at least get a glimpse of the splendor that once was.
I've seen it. It's really quite something.
So, after all this, what can we take away from this incredible tale? A story that begins with artistic ambition and ends with wartime chaos and mystery.
It's a story that captures the imagination. I think the enduring fascination with the Amber Room tells us a lot about ourselves. It speaks to our innate curiosity, our desire to solve mysteries, and perhaps even our fascination with lost treasures and the stories they hold.
I agree.
It reminds us that history is full of secrets waiting to be unlocked, and that sometimes the most valuable things are not the objects themselves, but the stories they tell, the emotions they evoke, and the mysteries they leave behind.
Beautifully said. And who knows? Maybe one day someone listening to this will be the one to finally solve the mystery of the Amber Room. Until then, we're left with a final thought-provoking question. What do you think happened to the Amber Room? Is it lost forever? Or is it out there somewhere, waiting to be rediscovered? Keep digging, keep exploring, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to uncover the truth.